So one of the things that really does help in just give people experience, and this is all to do with behaviour change, is what we've been talking about. How do you get people to develop the habit of storytelling? And it's through experience, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things we find helps a lot is the dreaded role play.
Yeah.
I know when you mention role play in a training scenario, people do tend to scatter a little bit. But I tell you what, it works so well. One of the things that we teach in our programs is this idea of story listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I remember I was in Canberra doing a session for a group of people, and I sort of said, look, I'll just play the role as the customer, and your job is to get me to tell them a story.
Yep.
Right? So anyway, the first lady jumped up and she was asking all these questions, but there were questions I could easily answer with a yes or no or an opinion.
Yep.
Right? Nothing was really drawing out and I had to time out. I said, look, just think about the fact that you want me to start with a time marker, right? You know, what would you do to get a time marker? She goes, oh, okay, yeah. And then she asked me, she says, when have you seen blah, 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 this happen? And of course that was more of a natural story listening question, so I told her a story.
So you told a story.
And as soon as I told the story, her face lit up and the whole audience, applauded. And it was all that positive feedback and that she finally nailed it, right? And I think that happens, it's so important that it happens, that they actually struggle. And in fact, my wife, who's a primary school teacher, they talk about little kids. They're changing the way they're teaching little kids now, and they call it the learning pit. And in other words, they put the kids in a situation where they struggle, like with maths. They don't give them all the answers. They actually give them a situation where they have to work it out themselves. They can't work it out. They're just clawing their way out of the learning pit, and then the teacher starts to tell them a few things and it all falls together. I think that's the metaphor that we need to build.
Yes.
Right.
And similar experience in story-powered sales, of course. It's my opinion that story listening is more important than storytelling for salespeople.
Yeah. Yep.
But the problem with the command listen is it's not very instructive. Like, what should I listen for? How should I pay attention? But if I say, ask questions to try to get the client to tell you a story that you'll easily remember, because we easily remember stories.
Yeah.
It's a different instruction.
Yep.
And we have a role play, the dreaded role play exercise, but the sales guys like this role play because they get a chance to play customer.
Right.
So what I do is I put 3 or 4 abstract client comments or statements up for them to choose. Just choose one.
Yep.
There'll be things like, we believe in sustainable development.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I think that means nothing
Yes,
as far as I'm concerned. So we'll say to the guys, look, I'll put you in pairs. One of you will play the client. Now everyone gets a chance of playing the client. This is good fun. One plays the client, they'll make that statement, and your job is to just answer any question with a simple, short answer. But if you get a question that you could make a story out of it, give a story.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. So we do that one way around, and I pull them back after 3 or 4 minutes, and usually they're struggling. They're saying it's really hard.
Yeah.
But then I swap them over. Now it's your turn to be the salesperson, you're not the client. And then they go much better. So that experience of being the client and saying, no, don't ask me that way. Try and ask it this, because you're ready with a story, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're ready to answer. So now you've experienced being the client, and you go, okay, now I can tell us. Now I can ask the question.
I know what I should be sort of, listening out for.
Exactly.
Right?
I know what to listen out for. And
Yep.
this exercise is normally the highest rated exercise. So at the end, it's like, what did you want to remember? They go, that's what I want to remember, how to do that.
Yes.
And I tell 2 stories in that exercise. I tell a story from my career where I failed to ask a story-seeking question and missed a really big deal. And then a story where I did and won a really big deal. Yeah. And the difference is a few $100 million, actually, is the difference between listening a story and not listening to a story.
Yeah.
This is very consequential, this skill.
Indeed, yeah. And I think it's missed out in most story programs.
It is.
They don't even think about story listening. And of course the third one that we haven't had a chance to talk in this clip, the third one is story triggering. So that's our triumvirate, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Telling, listening and triggering.
Acting in a way that someone will tell stories about you.
That's right, yeah. Do something remarkable enough that will actually share a story about you. Yeah. Anyway, that's good. Thanks, Mike.
Good.